This Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 8th day of August, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. First weather graphic up should be the fire danger graphic here, and that it is, and it's the area barely getting into the high category there. It's really along the Porcupine River there, now north of Yukon Flats. That's really kind of not solid, actually, and barely into the high category. So we're just about ready to lose any high fire danger in the state here. And for the warnings, watches, and advisories, there are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state for the next day or so. At least for the next, or at least for tonight and into tomorrow. That may change tomorrow, possibly, maybe not. These forecasts are always subject to change without notice. Anyway, satellite imagery showing low pressure coming in along the Alaska Peninsula there, the associated front lifting northward and kind of stalling out along the lower Yukon River Valley Delta area and into Norton Sound, pushing east-northeast, bringing pretty good soaking rains in across southern Alaska, especially south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula area, and even Prince William Sound. Lighter amounts up in the Copper River Basin. Cordova, in the last 12 hours ending at mid-afternoon, had about a little over an inch of precipitation fall there, while Yakutat rain had started later there. They picked up about 4/10 of an inch and lighter amounts over the northern panhandle along the north coast. Valdez had Seward had 2/3 of an inch in the 12-hour period, and then Valdez picking up about 1/3 of an inch, I believe, or maybe 4/10 of an inch. And otherwise lighter amounts over the southwest interior, but still in that 1/4 to 4/10 of an inch, just under half an inch, some areas there, range. And gusty winds, several areas around the state today, 3 separate areas up along the northwest coast, western Arctic coast, Cape, and into the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, where winds gusted 30 miles an hour at Nome out of the north. And let's see, Point Hope had gusts 36 miles an hour from the north, and Gamble had gusts 43 miles an hour out of the north. And then down to the south with that system, St. George Island had a gust to 41 miles per hour from the northwest on the backside of the low, and Cold Bay westerlies at 41 miles per hour for peak gusts there. And then Sand Point, gust to 43 miles an hour out of the southwest. And winds much lighter back to the west there with drier conditions as well. And you can see as this rolls up, some moisture dropping down out of the Arctic there, catching the eastern Arctic coast, keeping it cloudy with some light rain, fog, and drizzle occurring over the eastern Beaufort Sea coast during the afternoon, but pretty light amounts, just clouds otherwise back to the west there, breaking out some sunshine, clear areas there south of the Brooks Range in the narrow band there, but not anything widespread, clearing and pretty hard to come by. Could have been some, actually it was a little more easy to come by for the northwest coast into the Noatak Valley there in the lee side of the Brooks Range, DeLong Mountain areas. But elsewhere it was not much of a factor today, sunshine-wise, over the state, and temperatures had trouble getting out of the 60s in a lot of areas. And for the on the chart here, if we go through this one more time, you can see the push off to the northeast there. Rain will be increasing tonight across the southeast coast, spreading southward and increasing in intensity. And then the next storm already gathering clouds down to the south of the central Aleutians. You see it right in the edge of the picture there. But the one today actually lifting northward toward Cape Newenham late this afternoon. And the front pushing eastward again by late this afternoon or evening. Should be in about position. I have it drawn there with a moderate rainfall to heavy there, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, starting to let up south central Alaska, becoming more showery, definitely more showery already. Kodiak Island with some breaks there with that westerly flow, and also breaks off the southwest coast. You can see the dark area there with showers on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Kind of an area of light rain, fog, and drizzle scattered along the Aleutians there, just close enough to that next system to the south, but nothing too heavy yet. And dry up over the north, as you can see better on this imagery, the clearing that took place there along the Brooks Range, actually even into the north side of the Brooks Range and also south side there, mostly north of the Yukon Flats area to the northwest coast, and then also some breaks and sun breaks over the southern panhandle ahead of the system coming in tonight. And for tonight, you'll see it moves on through, so rain heavy at times, especially in the north tonight, and then beginning to let up a little bit slowly on the North Gulf Coast. Southwest flow carrying surges of moisture northeastward continues, so it'll lighten up, but it won't end outright. May become a little more showery tomorrow, but or definitely it may end though for the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet area, southern Cook Inlet, Barren Islands, and widely scattered showers Bristol Bay in the southwest interior, but looks wet northern Cook Inlet, Manuscus-Susitna Valley. More showery in nature for the eastern Alaska Range, 40-mile country, the band of rain shifting up to the Yukon River. And the next system south of the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians starts to spread rain into those areas later tonight. The wind field staying to the south, and the low west of the Pribilofs weakening, but that north to south flow over the Bering Sea carrying surges of cloud, showers, rain, and fog. Southward, winds pretty light though for the Aleutians, and a little breezy winds continue. Small craft advisories continue through tomorrow for St. Lawrence Island, 30-knot winds there in the marine forecast. So could see gusts of 40 miles an hour again with that to the Bering Strait. And lighter winds though, but still stays clear for the Kotzebue Sound area. And as I mentioned, stays windy for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, and kind of breezy for the Alaska Peninsula with that low center pushing up to Kodiak Island. We've got gale force winds and rain heavy at times for the North Gulf Coast. And Kenai Peninsula stays wet, Kodiak Island, but with lighter winds, definitely IFR there. Risk of thunderstorm along the eastern Alaska Range, otherwise cloudy, wet, and cool over the southern 2/3 or southern 3/4 of the state. Heaviest rain over the Panhandle, lighter amounts down to the south, high pressure trying to hold on. And partly sunny conditions for the North Slope. And for Tuesday, well, that system rapidly moves off to the northeast. We got one center over the eastern Brooks Range and the other one well into Canada, southwest of the Great Slave Lake. And still southwest flow aloft though, so that's a wet weather pattern, so the winds will be, or the rainfall will be diminishing throughout the day over the Panhandle, becoming more showery and possibly ending down toward Dixon Entrance. But it'll stay windiest up in the north, 30-knot winds for the Lynn Canal area, and about 20 knots say for the central inside waters, and even lighter winds, 10 to 20 knots say for the southern inside channels there. Otherwise, periods of rain, showers, and cloudy skies continue for the central eastern interior, actually from the Brooks Range southward into the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound area. Looks for possible sunshine, Kodiak Island, ahead of that next warm front system. That'll be pushing northeastward and spreading more rain into southern Alaska and the Panhandle on Wednesday and Wednesday night. Low temperatures for tonight, 45 to 50 central interior, 35 to 42 up there in the Brooks Range, North Slope in the mid-30s, mid to upper 30s, much of the Arctic coast, upper 40s there, Noatak Valley, Kotzebue Sound, and lower 40s for the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, upper 40s for the Pribilofs, and well, all of the Aleutians, to near 50 over the Alaska Peninsula, lower 50s Kodiak Island, and mid-50s for the southeast coast. Highs tomorrow, mid to upper 50s, not much change with the clouds, rain, and wind coming into the Panhandle there, so your highs aren't going to be much warmer than your overnight lows tonight, keeping it in the 50s, below 60 probably everywhere. Better chance of seeing 60 degrees south central Alaska, but not getting too far into the 60s. And lower 60s there for the interior is about it. 63 at Fairbanks, Northway Tok area might get up to 66. Otherwise, 50s for the Brooks Range, 40s for the North Slope, 40 to 45 for the central eastern Arctic coast, and mid-50s for the Pribilofs for highs, lower to mid-50s the Aleutians, and maybe trying to push 60 there along the Alaska Peninsula. Pilot Point, Port Hayden, King Salmon could hit the 60-degree mark or into the lower 60s, but that's about it. And then for the Tuesday morning outlook, lows mid to upper 30s, Arctic coast, North Slope into the Brooks Range, south of the mountain zone, mid 40s, mid to upper 40s for the central interior to near 50, say around Galena. and upper 40s Kuskokwim Valley to near 50 all the way out to the coastline. No change in the Bering Sea, mostly in the upper 40s to near 50 along the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. Lower 50s again for Kodiak, upper 40s, lower 50s south central Alaska, 50 to 55 or so for the southeast coast. Highs on Tuesday, 60s, and that's about it. No 70s showing up. In fact, lower to mid 60s. 64 is the highest I see on the chart here, and that's at Fort Yukon or Chalk-Yitzhak. Otherwise, upper 50s, lower 60s for the Panhandle, lower 60s south central Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on into first line weather graphic Monday morning. IFR, Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast and Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, right on down across the western, some of the central Bering Sea, and into the Yukon Delta coast, and actually in across the Delta there to just about southern Norton Sound. Norton Sound itself, VFR, and across Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue, and roughly Kivalina on southeastward, Selawik, Kobuk Valley, and then eastward, north of the Yukon River, we've got VFR, but to the south side of the Yukon River there you can see a band of IFR, and then areas of IFR across all of southern Alaska with marginal VFR, and then just a few areas of VFR, or areas of marginal VFR, and some scattered areas of VFR, Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, and maybe the Copper River Basin, and the east or the north side of the eastern Alaska Range. IFR for the Panhandle, some marginal VFR out toward the coast, and then for the afternoon, shaping up like this. We've got improved conditions. Lose a VFR mostly over the interior, well, completely over the interior, and even the Arctic coast, except for the west side there. And the Bering Sea really improves, just a smaller zone of IFR there, just clipping Nunivak Island, but northeast of the Pribilofs, and in between Adak and Atka. And then some VFR breaking out, Alaska Peninsula, south shores of the Fox Islands, and out over the western Aleutians. And just some marginal VFR there in that band from the Yukon Delta up across the Fairbanks area, and then eastward to the border, and then areas of marginal VFR, mostly over the mountainous terrain, southern Alaska, otherwise VFR, and a lingering band of IFR for the North Gulf Coast, mostly in the mountain range there in the northern Panhandle. IFR Kodiak Island goes marginal VFR Tuesday morning, Kodiak Islands. That next surge shoves into the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle with IFR. IFR, southeast Bering Sea, and along the southwest coast, as well as the eastern central Aleutians, Pribilofs marginal, and IFR mostly on the central western Arctic coast, marginal VFR for the north slope into the Brooks Range. Some of that spilling southward there across the Koyukuk Valley and toward the Yukon River. And then for the afternoon on Tuesday, good, mostly VFR, just some isolated areas of lingering marginal VFR there, mostly north of the Alaska Range, a little bit more extensive south of and east of the Alaska Range, with the marginal VFR, Talkeetna Mountains, in down across the Chugach, into the mountainous terrain of the Kenai Peninsula, eastern Copper River Basin. IFR from about Yakutat to Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, and then the eastern Panhandle over toward the border. Bristol Bay IFR, some IFR south central Bering Sea, and the north shores of Unalaska Island and the Alaska Peninsula. And for that passes Zanutuvik, IFR to start, VFR to end. And just an improving trend, lowest flying conditions in the morning hours, better in the afternoon for Atka. That improving trend is the case for just about all the passes. Lake Clark and Merrill go IFR to marginal VFR. And same trend for windy, IFR to marginal, rainy, windy, same forecast, IFR to marginal VFR. Isabel, same forecast. And Mentasta, take it to VFR and only start out marginal there, so better conditions over toward Mentasta. And Tanita, IFR to VFR for the Portage area. IFR probably won't go VFR, but likely to go marginal during the afternoon hours toward evening. Chilkoot and White, IFR. And the freezing levels, 6,000 feet. They're over the Tanana Valley, central Tanana Valley, down into the Copper River Basin, and over toward Yakutat. Otherwise, a pretty good gradient there across the southeast coast, up to 12,000 feet toward Dixon Entrance, and cool 4,000 feet out over the west central Bering Sea, and 2,000 feet makes it back onto the eastern Arctic coast. Icing, we've got Considerable moderate rime icing into the Bristol Bay area, eastern Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Range area to southwest Kodiak Island. Otherwise, light to isolated moderate rime icing for the southern Alaska and the Panhandle up to and along the Yukon River. Jet stream, 120 to 140 knot jet there, Alaska Peninsula across Kodiak Island, 115 to 130 knots there into the northern Panhandle. 9,000 feet, a little farther south in the stronger winds, 55 knots cutting across the southeast coast, southern Panhandle. 3,000 feet, got 40 knotters across St. Lawrence Island, 35 knots across the eastern Aleutians, 25 knots west-southwest into the northern Panhandle, translating to considerable moderate chop for small aircraft, Bering Strait and St. Lawrence Island.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or a radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. It turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
It happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery.
Okay.
Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
This looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about GINA and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast for the Panhandle along the south coast. West-southwest tomorrow, 15 knots, seas 7 to 8 feet. Southwest 20 knots, seas just under 10 feet for the north coast. Small craft advisories for south winds sustained at 30 knots in Lynn Canal with 6-foot seas, south at 20 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, southern inside area is only variable to south of 10 knots with 5-foot seas. And looking ahead to Tuesday, we've got small craft advisories all along the southwest coast. South coast lightest, 25 knots out of the west, and 30-knot winds on the central coast. Seas running 13 to 18 feet, and then 18-foot seas with southwest winds at 30 knots on the north coast. Central and northern inside waters of the Panhandle, south winds 30 knots, 6-foot seas, 20 knots from the south for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound tomorrow, southeast at 15, seas 3 feet. North Gulf Coast, southwest 20, 8 to 10-foot seas. Small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, southeast at 25. Kamishak Bay, southeast at 20. Cook Inlet, south 15 knots, seas 3 to 4 feet. And for Tuesday, Cook Inlet, south to southwest, 15 to 20 knots. Southwest at about 20 for Kamishak Bay. And then with the next storm coming in, we've got gale warnings out in the forecast for Tuesday. For the North Gulf Coast, all southwest 35 knots, seas 12 to 14 feet. Barren Islands, southwest at 30 knots. And Prince William Sound, lighter winds, southwest at 15 with seas at 3 feet. Kodiak Island, east winds tomorrow, 30 knots on the east side of the island. Otherwise, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, south 30 knots. Small craft advisories, Alaska Peninsula, west winds 25 to 30 knots, and southeast at 15 there for Bristol Bay. For Tuesday, Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, east side of the island there, all the way down to Castle Cape for southwesterlies at 25 knots, southwest 20 for the Shelikof Strait area. And for the Alaska Peninsula, west-southwest, 20 knots, 5 to 11-foot seas, high seas on the Pacific side of the peninsula, and southwest 20 for Bristol Bay, seas at about 4 feet. On Alaska Island, small craft advisories, westerlies 25 to 30 knots, seas 6 to 10 feet. Unmak Island, northwest, 20 knots. Adak and Atka, even lighter winds there with northwest breeze at 15 knots. And light variable winds from Chitka Island at 10 knots, seas 6 feet. Great day to go out there. And for the area Kiska to Shimia, northwest winds 15 knots, seas at 6 feet. That holds through Tuesday there from Shemya to Kiska, as well as from Chitka. Light variable winds, and that extends all the way over to Nikolsky. Winds will be light and variable. Seas anywhere from 5 to maybe 8 feet. On Alaska Island, west winds 15 knots. Not too bad. Seas about 5 feet. And for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, northeast tomorrow, 15 knots. North 15 for the Pribilofs. North 15 also for the Yukon Delta coast. North at 10. Light winds for Norton Sound. Small craft advisories, though. St. Lawrence Island stays kind of windy there. Sustained 30 knots from the north. St. Matthew Island, north at 20. And for Tuesday, winds light northerlies for Norton Sound. And St. Lawrence Island coming down under small crafts now, north at 20, northwest 20 for the Yukon Delta coast, west 15, Kuskokwim Delta coast, light variable winds for the Pribilofs at 10 knots, seas under 5 feet, northwest 15 for St. Matthew Island. And up along the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, winds will be mostly out of the west, pretty light, 10 knots with seas slight, 2 feet or so. And western Arctic coast there, north at 10 with 3-foot seas. Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, north at 20. Small craft advisories from Cape Thompson to Wales for 25-knot northerly winds and 8-foot seas. And for Tuesday, 20-knot winds there from Wales to Cape Thompson at 20 knots with seas 5 feet, 15 knots there up to Cape Beaufort. And then the all of the Arctic coast looking variable at 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Call it northwest on the central coast, north on the west side, and just variable eastern Beaufort Sea coast. For tonight, that's already in place up there with the light variable winds, kind of a lack of gradient up there. Still a chance of fog, rain, and drizzle on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast toward Barter Island. Dry, though, to the south to hit that band of moisture along the Yukon River Delta southward into northern Cook Inlet and the Gulf Coast Copper River Basin. Rain moves across the Panhandle. Next system driving northeastward, another round of heavy rain and wind coming up, and that'll hit the Panhandle tomorrow night and into Tuesday, but things will begin to dry out over the southeast coast, or let up, not dry out. Winds, rain will diminish, and it'll stay wet and cool over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.